Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the inaugural performance at the Cypress Hill Winery in Hudson, Essex Emerging Artist Series. I want to remind you to turn off all of your cell phones. We are not allowing photography tonight. I also want to point out a couple events coming up. On April 12th, we have our season preview party. So it's free. You can come for food and drinks, and we tell you our amazing shows that we're going to be coming up in the next season. Also in here on April 22nd is the musical Once, so please come and see that. I'm very honored to introduce tonight the playwrights for tonight's show, Alison, Bolen, and Jason Kaufman.
Thank you all for coming. It means a lot to us to see the community come out and to support our project. Before we get started with the play, I wanted to talk about the Emerging Artist Program here at the Renaissance. It was started a couple of years ago by our artistic director, Michael Thomas, as a way to give new playwrights and directors and actors a chance to work on an original project and bring it from its beginning as an idea to a point where it can kind of stand on its own legs in a theater space in front of an audience. He based this program on a program he was involved with at Ars Nova in New York City, and it's one of the few programs of its kind in the country. And the Renaissance is really honored to have received prestigious National Endowment of the Arts grant, which will help us continue to put these on in the future. And we're really proud to kick off this program with our play. So we began working on this play in 2016 after we first encountered the letter that Ruby Crow wrote to her ex-husband detailing all the abuses that he put her through. And we were just taken by her strength and her courage immediately. And the letter has this lovely quality of being therapeutic, as if she was really confronting her abuser for the first time and taking back her power. And the script itself has taken on many forms over the course of this program, thanks to the feedback and mentorship of Michael and all of the people that have read the script and given us feedback. We're really appreciative. And especially over the last month, as the cast and the director, Nico, have began to take ownership of the story and of the characters, and I think they truly have brought out nuances and depths that transcend what we wrote on the page, and we're just really in debt and appreciative of them for that. So Alison Bolen, the other co-writer of Young and Unsullied, would like to say some things as well.
Thanks, Jason. Like he said, being the inaugural play for this program and watching the words that we wrote become something even bigger than we ever imagined has really been magical to witness, and we're so grateful to Michael for founding this program, to the cast and crew, especially Nico, Nick, and Linda. We really are also really honored to mention that Ruby's family was here last night. There were 6 members of her family, and having their blessing to tell the story has meant so much to us. So it was really important to have them here. Yeah, and then we also want to make sure everybody knows that we've partnered with the Domestic Violence Shelter tonight. They have a booth out in the lobby. Becky will be out there at intermission. We would love for you to talk with her and learn more about the programs that they support in our community and just all the benefits that the shelter provides to families in our community. Finally, just a small warning, there are some intense scenes in the play. If it's too much or if it feels too emotional for you, feel free to step out or take a breath, whatever you need to support yourself also. But thank you everybody for being here, and thank you cast and crew. We're so grateful to be able to work with all of you.
Hey guys, it's Kat here with Urban Explorers YouTube channel, and today I'm exploring the home of W.W. Stark in Mansfield, Ohio. Oh, ancient. It doesn't look like it from all the wreckage, but this place used to dominate Park Avenue. I mean, look at the detail on that staircase. Whoa. Look at the detail in the shades. You don't see handcrafted detail like this today. Seems crazy to us in our TikTok world that one of the wealthiest men in the city could simply disappear into the receding tide of history. I mean, I know it fits half my Insta friends were yesterday, but I can find very little on Stark. Here's what I've been able to find. A document listing him as the owner of the New American Oil Company, which he sold to the Standard Oil Company. A record of him as president of the Richland Savings Bank. Another document listing him as owner of the New American Watch Company. Picture of him and his wife Ruby walking arm in arm down a bustling street, maybe Park Avenue, looking quite happy together. And finally, a picture of his headstone. Born in 1862, died in 1937, buried next to his wife, Ruby Caroline Crowe Stark. Whoa. Oh, this smells terrible. It's a letter addressed to Mr. Tarr from W.W. Stark's wife, Ruby. Damn. Does this lady have a story to tell?
Good morning, Ruby.
Good morning, Miss Henshaw.
Ruby, what is it?
Trudy, you've been my assistant for a long time now.
15 years, I suppose.
Yes, 15 years. And I'm lucky to have you not only as an employee, but as a friend.
Ruby, are you trying to save my feelings?
Save your feelings.
I know your situation has changed since you divorced that man. I didn't think you'd be able to keep me on as your assistant forever.
Goodness, no, Trudy. I simply have a favor to ask.
What is it, dear?
I've composed a letter, and I need a few copies typed.
Is that all? You gave me a fright tiptoeing around like
It's a
that.
very personal letter.
Not the first personal correspondence you've entrusted to me.
This one is different. It's addressed to Mr. Tarr. Some of it will come as no surprise to you. Other parts, however, I trust that...
Yes. Dear. Say no more.
And Trudy, I want to assure you that our situation is fine. Better than fine. Mr. Stark has given me his word.
Mr. Tarr, my purpose in writing is that you may have perhaps a clearer understanding regarding my position and the events that led to our divorce, a course which I believe was set by fate since that first week of our marriage some 20 years ago. First of all, I was not more than a child when our marriage took place. How cheaply I was sold into marriage, the most holy relationship a life should know. I was entering my junior year in high school when my parents and I first heard you speak at the Chautauqua in Cincinnati.
The orator, ladies and gentlemen, is a man who can take an unpopular idea and make it popular. With his words, he can tense your muscles, command your will, capture your reason, and compel you to fight on the side of your enemy. His tongue is the creator of destinies. Rest assured, the print shop shall not eclipse what happens here at the Chautauqua as long as this race of orators lives. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, you will have the pleasure of hearing from just such an orator. He's known far and wide on the circuit, and you will catch his name mentioned in the fine company of celebrities like William Jennings Bryan. Ladies and gentlemen, I present Alexander Tarr.
When we consider man's beliefs, his moral intuitions, his highest of ideals and his lowliest of impulses, we may be surprised to discover how little we have developed since Plato sat at the foot of Socrates. Our technologies, however, are advancing at a faster and faster pace. Consider the automobile. One might leave Cincinnati today and arrive in Cleveland in as little as 2 days. So long as the wheels stay on, of course. Consider the telephone. With this innovation, important men may conduct business across the country in an instant. I've spoken with the most curious brothers in Dayton who tell me they will take to the sky within the next decade. They dream of one day traveling across vast oceans. 6 weeks of travel by sea will be reduced to 1 day's travel in one of their airmobiles. They will give mankind wings.
Aeromobiles. Did you hear that, Cora?
Can you imagine? We could swift away to Paris for dinner.
Then to Egypt for breakfast atop a pyramid.
Beaches, Charles. Oh, how I crave beaches.
To Hawaii for lunch, my dear.
But we must remember the story of Icarus. We must proceed with caution. For when our inventiveness outpaces our wisdom, we end up with the Bailey machine gun, which fires 1,000 rounds downrange every minute, thus transforming the gentlemanly art of war into an incomprehensible act of carnage.
Are you enjoying yourself, dear?
Very much, Mother. What a Promethean thinker Mr. Tarr is.
Promethean thinker? Dear Ruby, you are a curious girl. The things you say.
It means he's a forward-thinking man, Mama.
And a handsome man.
Indeed. He certainly looks the part of a world-renowned orator.
As our spatial boundaries collapse, so too will our national and political boundaries. In this new world where we have transcended space and time, a global family will emerge. That family is none other than the kingdom spoken about in the gospel. Nothing will separate the coming man from his neighbor. Not ideology or economics, not culture or religion. The Jewish diaspora and the African tribesmen will live together in mutual prosperity. But we are not yet there. We are yet navigating this change by the candlelight of our primitive understanding. And if our mind for invention continues to outpace our wisdom, then we will surely be laid low by the very invention that for a moment raised us to the height of Apollo.
Well, I'm not always optimistic. What with these young people loafing about these days, reading their fanciful novels. But Mr. Tarr has provided me with much hope for the future.
Oh dear, I hope you're right. What man wouldn't want to become the type of man he describes? And what woman wouldn't want to marry such a man?
What an exciting life it would be, Mama. To travel from city to city, to be instructed on the classics, to be lifted outside of my sphere of thought.
Dear Ruby, you have such a way with children, and you're a fine seamstress. Any man would be lucky to have you.
Hello. Thank you for attending the Chautauqua this evening. Did you have a favorite part?
Your faith and optimism. Without a doubt, I do so admire your faith and optimism. I'm Charles Crow. This is my wife, Cora. We would love to introduce you to our daughter, Ruby.
Ruby Crow. What a lovely name.
Thank you, Mr. Tar.
Are you a brilliant gem or a common bird? Do you sparkle or are you black as night?
I suppose I would rather sparkle.
I suppose that's the right answer. Did you know that crows are considered the most intelligent of birds and among the smartest of all animals?
Interesting. I didn't know that.
It's true. And crows are drawn to brilliant and sparkling things.
I guess I could say the same is true for myself.
Forgive me for being so direct, Mr. Tar, but I wonder if we might interest you for dinner one night while you're in town. My wife makes a lovely roast. I'd love to pick your brain more about religion. You wouldn't remember, but I once heard you speak before on the Buddha.
Ah, yes. My series on the religious teachers throughout the ages. Siddhartha Gautama is a remarkable figure. He taught us that it is our desire, our craving, that generates suffering. A profound teaching.
I would love to hear all about it. And our Ruby. I think you would find her fascinating.
I can see that. It would be my honor to continue this conversation over dinner.
I often fantasize that I might become a companion to a man whose studies have carried him outside of my sphere of thought. There is so much I do not know. There is so much mystery in the world, just waiting to be unveiled.
Mr. and Mrs. Crow, I appreciate your generosity, but I'm afraid I must get going. It has been an absolute pleasure spending time with you this evening. Ruby?
Not just yet, Mr. Tar. If I might have a word alone. Cigarette? Ruby, please take care of the glasses. Mr. Tar, I know she is young and inexperienced in the ways of the world, but Ruby is a sharp young woman and eager to learn all you might teach her.
She's good around the house. Yes, Mr. Crow?
Yes, very helpful and bright. She's done fine in her school.
Yes, I'm sure. Excuse me for being so direct, Mr. Crow, but I find Ruby lovely, and I don't mind if she's a little unrefined. I once had a companion who was my intellectual equal, and it is not a pattern I wish to repeat. I'm looking for a rather traditional marriage.
Yes, that is Ruby to the letter. So you would consider...
Yes, I would very much like to see her again. A courtship, with your permission.
Good morning, husband. Oh, I just can't get used to that word. Husband, my husband, Mr. and Mrs. Tar. How are you, my dear? Are we expecting another beautiful day? There must be a paper around here somewhere. You would like the papers to read and some breakfast, yes? Last night was, well, I very much enjoyed it. It's becoming more pleasurable. I expect we'll have that sunny one in no time at all.
Ruby, is it morning already? What pleasure it would be to sleep for an eternity.
Sleep? My darling Alexander, how could I wish to sleep when I could be awake with you?
My little crow, always cawing. Caw, caw, caw.
I'm just so happy. Do you know how often I prayed for a husband like you? Someone to sharpen my mind.
Sweet Ruby. You think I married you for your mind? There's no need to be shy, my dark raven. We are husband and wife.
It's just that this is all new for me.
You will learn. Do you recall what Paul says about marital relations in his letter to the Corinthians?
No? What does he say?
Let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. The wife has no power over her own body but the husband. Let the husband render unto the wife due benevolence. Be benevolent.
Alex, I had a thought. Perhaps I could take a private tutor?
Sweet Ruby.
I know a lot of your ideas are over my head, but I'm just so excited to learn.
Come now. Let us focus on one sphere of learning at a time.
Alexander, I'm serious. I want to be intellectual companions as well.
Ruby, this will have to wait. We need to get dressed.
Oh, what do you have planned for us today?
We are meeting with potential investors for the hotel in Chautauqua.
Alex,
Ruby, it will only take the afternoon.
but it's our honeymoon.
Business doesn't stop for honeymoons. Now, please, just put on some clothes. Not that dress.
Alex, I just thought we would spend the day taking in the sights.
Ruby, if you insist on carrying on like this, I'm afraid this marriage will only mean disappointment for the both of us.
But I'm not disappointed. We're just getting started.
Never mind. There will be plenty of time for sightseeing later.
But I'm not disappointed.
I said we are finished discussing this. Oh, I almost forgot. I got you a gift.
That's sweet of you.
Here, wear this one. Now please, let us dress in silence. I chose you because you're young and unsullied. If I wanted someone to be my intellectual equal, I would have taken Sadie back when she came begging.
Sadie?
It's nothing.
Young and unsullied? Is that what I am?
Ruby, I only meant that you...
You want a lump of clay you can shape.
No. I only meant that you're in...
That I'm a footnote to some other woman. To Sadie?
I only meant that your innocence is a virtue. Consider the Vestal Virgins of Rome. It was their purity that brought them closer to the gods than all other mortals.
Who is Sadie?
She's nothing. It was in the past.
You loved her?
She was nothing! Look, I'll take you wherever you'd like after my meeting. Oh, how about the harbor? Oh, how about Edgar Allan Poe's grave? Have you read Poe? You must read Poe. Ruby, please cheer up. It's unwomanly to cry. Come now. Let's get you dressed. You really are lovely, Mrs. Tarr.
How cheaply I've been sold into this most holy of relationships.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, I am honored to present to you one of my most popular lectures, The Tragedy and Comedy of Human Life. Experts and critics are fond of placing art into categories for review. Easily two of the most studied categories are the tragedies and comedies of William Shakespeare. The comedies are upbeat, farcical, and full of joy. They often end in a marriage or a reunion. The tragedies are somber and hopeless. They're full of questionable intentions, and they often end in death. Their inevitable conclusion seems to imply that the very nature of man means that he is fated to suffer. But does art mimic life? Can we apply the same two concepts to develop a clearer view of human life? Can we view our own lives as either comic or tragic? Or is the concept too simple to apply to the full breadth and depth of a human life? Gentlemen, I assure you we are sitting on a gold mine here. Mr. Stark, I must tell you how wonderful your pocket watches are. I've owned a few from other makers, but none compare.
I appreciate that. We take great pride in our product.
It shows. So, gentlemen, Orchard Island on Indian Lake in northern Ohio. Have you heard of it?
I can't say that I have.
Gentlemen, you are proving my point. You haven't heard of it because there is nothing there. It's a blank slate, the most beautiful blank slate you have ever seen. I want you both to come visit with me. I'll show you my vision. A grand hotel, a Chautauqua venue, shops, amusements. Gentlemen, with your investment, I promise you that in 10 years, Orchard Island will be the premier destination for men like us. It'll be our very own Atlantic City.
Yes. Well, I'm very interested.
Yes, count me in. Your reputation as a lecturer gives me confidence it will become a destination for orphans.
It was a pleasure to meet you, Ruby.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Stark.
Oh, please. My friends call me Wello.
Wello? Wello Stark from Mansfield?
Oh, yes. Have we met?
My folks are in Mansfield.
Oh, you don't say. Perhaps I know them.
I doubt that. Charles and Cora Crow?
Oh, I can't say I know them, but are they in the city?
Yes, on Carpenter.
Oh, Carpenter. A lovely area. Well, I'll have to pay them a visit and tell them I've been graced to meet their daughter.
I'm sure they'd love to hear of their daughter's new adventures. We're on our honeymoon, you see.
Oh, my. Well, congratulations. Your husband is very ambitious.
He is that.
He must be thrilled with the plans for Orchard Island.
I must admit, I'm not sure I've quite wrapped my head around it yet. The idea is quite new to me.
Oh, well, I think it's a wonderful opportunity. I do love Chautauqua.
Oh, me too. That's what drew me to Alexander. I guess I always imagined us buying some property in Mansfield, perhaps some apartments for the steelworkers.
Oh, and you get to stay close to your family. After all, that's what's most important in life.
Certainly.
Charles and Cora and Carpenter?
Yes, that is correct.
Well, forgive me for interrupting your honeymoon with our business dealings.
It's no bother.
I look forward to making their acquaintance.
The Chevelle incident was the first serious affair. So for weeks, I worked carefully planning how best to discard these people from our list of friends. Mrs. Chevelle was infatuated with you, due largely to the fact that her husband was such a preposterous fool.
So tell me, Ruby, how was your honeymoon? Alex tells me you went to Orchard Island before heading to Baltimore.
It was so very lovely. Alexander showed me where he wants to build his hotel.
You know why they call it Indian Lake? Because there was an Indian settlement there not 100 years ago. We finally ran them off during the war.
He wants to build a Chautauqua theater, too.
Oh dear, I know all about his plans. When Alex first took me there, it felt like Providence. I told him, this is the place. I can sense it. This is where you will forge your legacy.
He took you there?
Mm-hmm.
Well, nothing is written in stone. We're also considering property in Mansfield. There's plenty of wealth to
Oh
sustain.
dear. An industry town is no place for culture. You simply must escape that town. Alex, tell me you won't ruin your life by settling down among those galley slaves.
There was never any danger of that, Eleanor.
I'm relieved to hear it. So tell me, Alex, how did it go with the investors in Baltimore?
When it comes to investors, you've got to sell the vision. Bring it to life.
I have such great news. I was actually saving it for this occasion.
Investors want to know what they stand to gain. They need guarantees, a return on investment.
It appears as if the Orchard Island Hotel and Chautauqua are no longer a dream. I have secured enough capital to begin building my hotel.
Oh, Alex, you could charm the skin off a snake. I knew getting investors wouldn't be an issue.
Alexander, I'm so happy. You didn't tell me they agreed to invest.
I'm telling you now. Unfortunately, Stark, that miserly oil tycoon from Mansfield, refused to invest, so the theater will have to wait.
Are you sure a Chautauqua theater is a wise investment? I've read the Edison company wants a kinetoscope in every home in 20 years. Will people really go to the theater when they could be at home watching a moving picture?
Well, with your reputation as a lecturer, I shouldn't think you'll have trouble finding others willing to invest. Just get started. I think that's wise.
Hotels are a difficult business. A lot of upkeep on a building of that nature. Frequent renovations, large staff.
Oh, Alex, this is wonderful news. I am over the moon. Come, tell me more about it over a cigarette. Ruby, Jacob, will you join us?
Oh, we don't smoke.
I would love one.
I suppose I could have a cigarette. Exercise for the lungs, they say.
Ruby, would you please clean up while we step out?
What a preposterous fool Mr. Chabelle is. Always on and on about everything as if he knew the slightest. Orchard Island, no longer just a dream. We will really be something. Imagine the culture the Chautauqua will bring, the brilliant men that will flow through our hotel. William Jennings Bryan. What if I get to meet William Jennings Bryan? Imagine it. Ruby Caroline Crowe of humble origins, rubbing elbows with celebrities. Eleanor is quite lovely. Alexander. Mr. Chabelle, have you lost your mind?
Oh, Ruby. Poor, sweet, naive Ruby. I like this game you play.
Game? Why are you scandalizing me like this? What if I were to tell Alexander?
Tell Alexander?
My husband, yes.
Oh, you truly are the most unsullied little thing, aren't you? You really don't know, do you? Your Alexander is at this moment quite enjoying the company of my Eleanor.
When viewed from beginning to end, every human life is a tragedy. We are but cracks of lightning between two eternal darknesses. Whether death comes for you as an infant or as an old man, your life could not possibly be long enough. In the end, everyone you love will turn to dust. And yet, how often do our daily activities inspire true comedy? Life is full of happy coincidences, silly misunderstandings, comedic timing that is hard to ignore. Consider a man who pursues a woman after misinterpreting her signals. That scenario could just as easily end in tragedy or comedy, depending on how you interpret the event. Ruby, Mr. O'Connell from Baltimore will be paying us a visit at the end of the week. We will be headed north to show him Orchard Island and present our plan. Ruby, I need you to make him feel welcomed. A man who feels desired will give liberally. You know, you really are quite seductive. You just need to learn how to wield that weapon. Ruby, look at me when I'm paying you a compliment. Have you been crying?
I'm pregnant.
Chabelle's.
Chabelle?
Is it that jackass Chabelle's, you goddamn tell me?
For heaven's sake, it's yours, only yours.
We haven't in months because of your discomfort.
You were drunk after the Norvells. You didn't pay any mind to my discomfort.
And so it went, year after year, winter and summer. I was never sure of peace or happiness or harmony. I never knew at what moment I would be the victim of a volley of oaths and curses. One of your favorite ones being, GDU, I don't care for you, and I never did. Robert's coming brought me real happiness, and the pent-up love of my life was lavished on him. He was truly a godsend. And here, I want to say that in his entire life, he has never given me a cruel look or a bitter word. Yes, I believe in the law of compensation.
Young and Unsullied is brought to you by our Emerging Artist Program series presenters, Hudson and Essex and Cypress Hill Winery, with support from the National Endowment for the Arts. Enjoying the show? Join us for our annual season preview, happening live on April 12th at 7 p.m. Be the first to hear us reveal our upcoming season and be entered to win several free giveaways. Free and open to the public, you don't want to miss this night of fun. Also coming up, Once the Musical will hit the stage in Theater 166 from April 22nd to May 1st. It's a guy meets girl story like no other. For more information, visit renttickets.org. Now please, enjoy the rest of the show.
Hey guys, it's Kat here with Urban Explorer's YouTube channel. Before we get into our activity for today, I just wanted to respond to the outpouring of interest in Ruby Crow's story. It's wild, isn't it? We walked into that mansion on Park Avenue expecting to find more about the local industrialist, W.W. Stark, but instead we found a new hero, someone even more lost to history than Stark, until now. Ruby's story is timeless. A young woman with hopes and dreams meets the wrong man, and her life takes a turn she never imagined. But Ruby was determined to tell her side of the story. She wrote it down, and 100 years later, it's inspiring a whole new generation of women, myself included. So as the team and I continue to sort through all the documents found at the Stark Mansion, I just want to show you guys how to revive moldy and musty documents. The document I'll be working on is a story about Alexander Tarr and Orchard Island. It says here that at some point before 1911, Reverend Alexander Tarr acquired Orchard Island. Reverend Tarr also built a coliseum on the premises of the hotel for the Chautauqua assemblies. These assemblies brought entertainment and culture, blah, blah, blah. Oh, here's the juicy bit. By the late 1920s, Tarr was accused of mismanagement of the hotel. Rather than face a court battle, he sold the property to the Orchard Island Development Company for $350,000.
In Shakespeare's comedies, the actors outdo one another with foolishness. The characters bump into one another and pull each other in misguided and unlikely directions. In Shakespeare's tragedies, the characters come with a fatal flaw. Their own actions become their undoing. I find it ironic that the same true nature of man that may inspire darkness and doom may also inspire laughter and joy. Consider a lost couple in the woods, or a friend who stumbles and loses their balance on the sidewalk. These actions could be considered tragic or comic, depending on how you interpret them and react. Do you laugh at yourself and your friend, or do you get embarrassed and blame one another? Which life are you living, friends? And if given the choice, which would you choose? It seems to me that comedy is the obvious choice, but is that something you can choose? Or are our lives predetermined by human nature?
Robert, dear, please leave Mother alone while she works. I'll attend to you shortly. Now, where were we, Mr. Tolkish? You have a reservation for 2 nights here for the Chautauqua?
Well, the musical numbers mostly.
Wonderful.
Although I am looking forward to hearing Mr. Tarr's thoughts on The Coming Man. I heard him 2 years ago in Indianapolis, and he was quite good.
Yes, he is an inspiration. All right, Mr. Tolkish, we have you in room 208 for 2 nights. You'll find the elevator down the hall to your left, and here are a list of all of our events for the weekend. Please let us know if we can do anything else to make your stay more comfortable.
Thank you.
Yes.
I apologize, gentlemen, for the carelessness of the staff. As I was saying, not one man in the history of the world has escaped the causes and conditions of human suffering. Not Siddhartha Gautama, not Jesus of Nazareth, and neither will you. Therefore, we are left with a decision to make. In the face of great suffering, will you choose a life of comedy or a life of tragedy?
Oh, Mr. Tarr, we are indebted to you for bringing us the greatest minds of our generation.
Bless you for saying so. The response has been so positive. Say, when I'm finished mingling, I would love to escort you back to your rooms. It would give me a chance to tell you about my plans for the future.
I would love that, Mr. Tarr.
Very handsome. Decor.
That was delightful, Mr. Tarr. Just wonderful. You truly know how to inspire.
You humble me with your praise, Mr. Bell. The Chautauqua is of utmost importance for a civilized society. Say, can I trust in your investment in my theater?
Generously so. I will be in touch.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. It is men like you who will lead this race out of its ignorance. And Mr. Stark.
Ah, yes, a very entertaining speech. When I lost my Virginia, I was in such grief. It never goes away, I suppose, but she would want me to carry on, do some good in this world.
I'm very sorry about your loss, Mr. Stark. I can't imagine if I were to lose my Ruby. Here's my Ruby now. Ruby, say hello to Mr. Bell. He will be making a generous donation to my theater. And this is Mr. Stark. He wishes to do good in the world, and I can think of no greater good than supporting a venture like ours.
Yes, Ruby, hello. We met years ago, actually, in Baltimore, I believe. It was your honeymoon, I believe.
So I remember it well.
Any regrets, Mr. Stark?
I beg your pardon?
On passing on the initial investment. Our investors have seen a handsome return.
Oh, I'm sure they're quite happy, but I've never been a man who dwells on the past.
You're not too late. I hope we can earn your support this week. We have big plans for the future.
Well, I've been impressed so far.
I'm glad to hear it. Gentlemen, would you please excuse us? How could you knock over those books with all of these potential investors around? The journalist from the Tribune is right over there.
I'm very sorry, Alexander. There's just so much to do, and
So
Robert...
much to do? I'm the one who has to entertain these fools. Never mind. We will discuss this later. For now, we need to find out how to get Stark to invest. His wife probably died of absolute boredom.
We had a wonderful time this evening, Mr. Tar.
I'm so very pleased to hear. Will you be joining us tomorrow night as well?
Oh, we wouldn't miss it.
You will meet with Stark in private. Grease the wheels. Oh, and Ruby,
Yes?
you missed one.
My dear little boy often wondered why I slept for hours and hours. I was so broken with bitter heartache that I could hardly go on. I had to suffer a dishonorable peace, awaiting the years when Robert would go away to college. Until that time, I was determined to do my duty up to the last day and hour. I feel that I accomplished this, and I might say I lived through your many disgraces in a way that left my dignity unsullied.
Mother, are you okay? Yes, Robert, dear. Mama's fine. You bring me so much joy.
We haven't had breakfast together in weeks. I miss watching the birds in the garden with you.
Did you watch them today?
No.
Ruby! Ruby!
Up here, Alexander.
You're still in bed. Incredible. If you could pull yourself together, we have a hotel to run.
Why does he treat you like that?
Your father is under a lot of pressure.
But you never speak to him that way.
You never give me a bitter word either. Such a good boy. Now go do your chores before your father. Look at that feet.
It's grandmother! Look who's come to visit!
Mother, who have you arrived with? I wasn't expecting you.
Alexander let me in downstairs. He sent me up here before returning to his study. Who was that young lady he was with?
He's hired a stenographer to help with the real estate.
I thought that you took care of that as well. Ruby, I could hear it in your voice the last time that we talked. I thought you could use an extra set of hands. Robert, could you fetch us a cup of coffee? Surely there's a kettle on somewhere.
Yes, grandmother.
Ruby, I can't stand to see you like this. He demands too much of you. The guests, scheduling his talks, his family, It's too much.
I'm trying to keep it together for Robert's sake.
You are a fine mother, Ruby.
You just need to wait until Robert goes off to university, and then
Dear, you just need some rest.
There must be a line to draw.
Oh, Ruby. Men get this way sometimes.
Father's never treated you this way.
I know that Alexander is demanding, but we must not be hasty in matters.
Matters of what, Mother?
There are consequences, dear. Eternal consequences.
I'm not being rash, Mother.
Ruby Caroline.
For 12 years, I have allowed myself to be humiliated. Eleanor Chabelle, Lillian Burke McCall, Georgia Ray McMillan, the damn stenographer!
That is enough. We must get you moving, dear. We must show him that you are stronger than his insults. Say, was that Mr. Stark I saw in the lobby?
I ask you to consider the man who puts all of his troubles on others. He storms around, manipulates his friends, blames everyone else for his woes. He defends his ego by chasing momentary pleasures. This man's life will be tragic even if he's surrounded by love and joy. Every step this man takes will lead to destruction, and he will leave a trail of tragedy. Compare that to the man who takes joy in his surroundings, laughs at his shortcomings, makes jokes with friends, and finds humor in the mundane. He ordered the food for next weekend. You know they need the order in advance.
Yes, I've placed it as usual.
Have you spoken with Mr. Parker about my Florida lecture?
Yes, it's all taken care of.
He will be printing brochures. Did you tell him I'll be speaking on the
The tragedy and comedy of human life? Yes, it's all taken care of. Now, if I may, I was off to meet Mr. Stark and his guests.
Of course you are.
I thought that's what you wanted me to do.
You really should have made yourself up. Where are you going?
I thought you wanted me to change my clothes.
Christ's sake, there's no time for that now. A plain girl for a plain man. It'll be fine.
Ruby, what can I help with?
The laundry ought to be finished. Could you find one of the maids and have them fetch it?
Certainly.
Thank you, Cora. Did you invite her here without asking me?
No.
How long will she be staying?
Until my spirits are back.
God help me, the hysterics. Just make sure he doesn't leave without investing.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Hope you slept well.
Oh, Ruby, hello. We were just talking about you and Alexander.
Good things, I hope.
Gentlemen, will you excuse us? Are you all right? You seem a bit shaken.
I'm fine. Well, it's embarrassing. I'm behind on some orders.
Oh, well, running a business is a lot of work, but you're clearly succeeding. Everything you've done is to perfection. I can see your touch in every detail. Now, don't let me keep you from your work.
Shame on me, putting my worries onto you. Well, I was hoping you'd allow me to show you the new sites we're developing on the lake.
Yes, gentlemen, we would love that, wouldn't we? Ruby would like to show us her new sites.
Excellent.
And Mr. Tarr, will he be joining us?
I will need to consult the stenographer that holds his schedule, but I'm sure we can make it a group outing.
Mr. Moody and Mr. Eaton also expressed some interest in waterfront property. Shall I invite them as well?
The more the merrier. Alexander loves an opportunity to show off his ideas.
If I remember correctly, you had some ideas of your own regarding properties in Mansfield.
That foolishness. I had almost forgotten.
Oh, I didn't think it was foolish at all. A town like Mansfield can have enough industry lodging. I wish I encouraged my wife more when she was alive. She had a great eye for fashion. She could have been the next Coco Chanel. Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Tarr. No, I'm putting my worries onto you.
Oh, not at all. I'm touched that you would share this with me.
After lunch, then?
After, oh, the properties.
Yes, the properties. I've taken quite an interest in them. I'm having my lawyers look into them.
It would be nice to have you around. All of you, I mean, familiar faces.
Yes, a familiar face.
My friend from Mansfield.
Your friend from Mansfield.
It was the same old story. You decided that Mr. Stark was interested in me, although you had encouraged and commanded my correspondence with him. It is my belief that Mr. Stark's intentions were and remain pure. It is true that I did appreciate his letters and the clippings, many of which you used in your publications, and his interest in his Orchard Island proposition. But your misgivings seemed to grow, and you resorted to your old methods of abuse and insults.
How lovely it was to see you again. No. I enjoyed spending time with... No. Last time we spoke, it struck me...
God damn it! Ruby! I need you in the kitchen! More insipid poetry?
Alexander, give that back. You wouldn't understand.
Dear Mr. Stark, what pleasure it was to receive this letter from you along with the clippings your sister saved about Orchard Island from the Mansfield papers. What in the ever-loving hell is this? Dear Mr. Stark! Dear Mr. Stark!
It's nothing. I'm continuing to interest him in...
I know exactly what you're interesting him in.
It's not like that. I'm only doing what you asked.
Where are they? Where are his letters?
There aren't any letters.
I said, where are his letters? If I catch you again, I will break every finger on your goddamn hand. You're nothing but a whore like Sadie. I should tell your father. What would Robert think? I have half a mind to tell him now.
Alexander, please, no, it's innocent. I won't...
You won't what?
I won't write him again.
That's my Ruby. Good girl. You're needed downstairs. This is one of my early reviews from when I was first starting out. Alexander R. Tarr is a young man whose natural oratorical gifts have been carefully developed by schooling and experience. His work shows careful thought, broad preparation, a high idealism, and a rich optimistic mold.
Oh, Alexander, you truly are the greatest orator. How lucky I am to be your stenographer.
This is my favorite. I have heard, Mr. Tarr, when the floodgates of feeling were open, brawny men appear puny beside his strength of mind. I have heard Mr. Tarr in the pulpit, making himself a conduit for the power of the Almighty God. I have heard him at the lectern, arguing on cutting-edge topics with the strength of our greatest philosophers. His ripest work is yet ahead.
That's not all that's right. Read me another.
Mr. Tarr's lecture abounded in wholesome thought, and was not devoid of wit or humor, with bursts of oratory that on the end won him high admiration.
I love your bursts of oratory, but not so much your wholesomeness.
We all have an image to convey. But here, with you, on this island that I built, we lay wholesomeness aside. God damn you, Ruby! How many times have I told you not to enter my office without knocking?
I was just bringing the new China catalogs for you to look at.
We were merely reading reviews of my work.
Please, dear, you must go. Conditions here will not permit you to hold your position any longer.
She doesn't make these decisions.
Dear, I find no fault with you, but I cannot allow this to go on. Either she leaves or I do.
You will never leave me. You will never leave me. Put that thought out of your simple little head. Do not forget who I am. People listen when I speak. I'll have you locked away for your nerves.
Mrs. Tar, are you all right?
Mr. Stark. Yes, all is well. Just a misunderstanding. I'm perfectly all right, thank you.
Friends, I ask you again, is your life a comedy or a tragedy? Don't tell me, but look within your own souls. Are you angry or jealous? Do you lust after your neighbor's wife? Do you take too much pride in your work? Do you add more pain to this already suffering world? Or do you bring a message of hope? Only you and God can know the truth that is written inside of your heart. If we let our fatal flaws control us, then we know the end of the story. It is always tragic. But if you can identify your fatal flaw and work to subdue it, then you might not be too late. You might still have a chance at a happy ending, a fateful turn of events, and an enchanted kingdom.
You are overdue for a break. Your father will be tickled to have you back for a spell. Everyone will be happy to see you. Oh, we'll have a party.
No party, Mother.
Right, you need your rest.
Ruby! Remember, dinner tonight with Stark. You better be at your best. Wear that little dress that Cora, I didn't realize that. Ruby, we have a dinner date with Mr. Stark tonight at 6 p.m. Why are you packing, darling?
You made your choice.
Ruby, is this about our little fight from earlier? I'm very sorry, dear. I didn't mean to upset you.
Alexander, it's just for a stint. When she's well rested, she'll be back in full form.
Ruby, these spats are normal in a marriage. You must not blow them out of proportion.
If this is normal, I want nothing of it.
Cora, would you please excuse us?
I suppose I'll make sure everything's ready.
Stay, Mother.
It's a rather private affair, Cora. I'm sure you would appreciate... So be it. Cora, I have kept this from you and Charles so as to not worry you, but I'm afraid I can no longer keep it a secret. Over the years, our poor Ruby has fallen into hysterics. The doctors don't believe she will be able to tend for herself in her current state.
This is absolutely untrue.
The doctors say patients in her current state are often delusional. I'm afraid a respite in...
Alexander, Ruby is coming home with me, and her father and I will see to it that she gets the care that she needs.
Well, that sounds wonderful, Cora. It's just that, well, I have connections. I could find her the right hospital. You want her to have the best doctor.
Alexander, I know my daughter, and what she needs is peace and quiet. It's quite simple. Actually, what she needs is love.
Ruby, don't go. Ruby, you know how important you are around here. You know how important you are to me.
I wonder if you will ever know or appreciate the horror endured those last few weeks that I spent at the hotel. I had gone days without food, and my nerves were shattered. But you insisted on inviting Mr. Stark and those other businessmen to visit. I thank God that my brain remained clear at all times, and that my mother was there to help Robert and I escape the awful circumstances you had put us in. Despite everything, you insisted on holding that last strange, tragic dinner because you You are hungry.
Oh, welcome. I'm glad you joined me for dinner tonight. Would you care for a glass of champagne? Scotch?
I would love a scotch, thank you.
Champagne for me, please.
And for the great Mr. Stark.
No alcohol for me, thank you.
No alcohol for Wello Stark? No fear. I will drink your share. I drink to the general joy of the whole table. Am I Banquo, or are you Mr. Stark? Surely I'm the fucking ghost here.
Mr. Tar, it's a pleasure to join you for dinner. I hung on every word of your lecture last night. It's a rare gift, and you have it.
A rare gift. My gift is my grift. The remedy is worse than the disease.
Perhaps we should postpone this dinner until you've sobered up, Mr. Tar.
Perhaps we should postpone this dinner until you sober up, Mr. Tar.
I'll be leaving. Mr. and Mrs. Bell, have a great evening.
Come on, Willow. $35,000. I know you're good for it. I'll even throw in an evening with my wife. Now I have the attention of the great Wello Stark.
Shame on you! Mr. Tar, shame on you. If you want to speak plainly, let's speak plainly. I will never give you a dime because you're a huckster. Mr. and Mrs. Bell, I would advise you to do the same. I've had my accountants look into you. You're so deep in the hole, this place will never be a profitable venture.
You wouldn't know a good investment if it stepped on your toe. This place was nothing before I arrived.
Oh, and it seems you've had a great bit of help from your wife.
Don't you dare talk about my fucking wife!
I think,
It's time for us to go as well.
My heart aches for Ruby. In all my time, I've never seen you show her an ounce of affection.
Hey guys, Kat here with another update for fans on our most popular series. The discovery of Ruby Crow's letter in the abandoned mansion has drawn attention from viewers all over the world. It struck a chord with many of you, and I continue to be awed by our strength and courage. So as the team and I continue to look through all the memorabilia collected from this dark mansion, I just wanted to show you a box that we found. It looks like some postcards and a large stack of business flyers. This looks like a journal. I can't be for sure, but it looks like the same handwriting as in the letter. Could it be more from Ruby? It's not a journal, it's poetry. I wonder if she collected them or if she wrote them herself. A line from life, my theme, to truly tell. What happened here on earth, scarce could in hell. Nor devils are so low, nor hell so deep,
that could endure what we in silence keep. Break that silence of this infested gloom. Paint black a sepulchre of a rotten tomb.
Good afternoon, Mother. Grandmother has Silas Marner and Howard dead.
Those are excellent choices, sweetheart.
Can we stay here forever, Mama?
Not forever.
At least until I finish these books?
Sure, you can stay until you finish the books.
What in God's name are you doing to me? You have a visitor. Just trying to get some color in your cheeks.
A visitor?
Wello Stark is here to see you.
Mr. Stark?
I'll let him know you'll see him shortly.
Mr. Stark, here to see me.
Ruby.
Mr. Stark.
Ruby. I intended to visit sooner. I'm sorry.
I understand. Did you receive my letter?
I did. And I'm sorry I didn't reply. I felt it was better we discuss this in person.
I'm embarrassed to have put you in this position.
Oh, it's no trouble at all. After all you've been through, it's the least I could do for a friend.
It does my spirit good to see you.
I've been in touch with Mr. West about the separation papers.
I don't know what to say. Thank you.
You're welcome, Ruby.
What should I do, Willow?
Well, that's not really my place to say.
But as my friend?
I heard a sermon last night where divorce was freely discussed by Reverend Gladden. He said that divorce is far preferable to any condition where a man and a woman do not love each other.
But does God agree?
Well, if God loves you as much as... Surely.
Thank you.
Well, I should be going. If this is what you decide you need to do, then all you have to do are sign and return them. Everything's taken care of.
I realized that I could not go through another experience of this kind. So I spoke with a lawyer who did not discourage divorce. When I filed a petition through Charles Drugan, you begged and pleaded through Robert, asking me to dismiss Drugan and promising that you would be fair, that you would do anything if only I would dismiss Drugan. But my heart and soul had been seared enough, it seems, and I had decided to fight for freedom from your persecution.
The great tragedy of life is that we are all doomed to death. The great comedy of life is the audacity to live a happy life in the face of one's own death. It's that hope against hope that wells up inside of us despite our suffering. Have you ever come to a major decision point in life and, not knowing which course to take, looked up to the stars and sensed in the grinding clockwork of the cosmos the great destinies that brought us here to this moment? What can one do but laugh? What can one do but...
Taking into account your father's testimony regarding the adulterous relationship between Mr. Tarr and Mrs. Chabelle and your humiliation in that incident, as well as Mr. Stark's witness of Mr. Tarr's many verbal and physical abuses against you, I'm going to grant this divorce. Finding Mr. Tarr at fault, the court orders alimony of $200. Mr. Tarr!
You wrote me that day to say that your only regret in life is that you did not kill someone in the courtroom that day. You continued this kind of talk to Robert until he was unfit for his studies, and I had to guide the poor child back to things that are wholesome and normal. It is a frightful thought to have, and I wish that Robert had never known that such instincts were in your heart. Robert needs the support of a father whose life will help him to be finer and better. Crime on your part would not give Robert the heritage he so richly deserves.
I'm not inclined to hand out divorces except in the most extreme cases, which is why I will ask once again, Mrs. Tarr, do you believe your marriage is irrevocably damaged?
Without a doubt, Your Honor.
And are you with child, Mrs. Tarr?
Excuse me, Your Honor?
My conscience won't permit me to grant a divorce to a woman with child in the event she not have the resources to raise the child.
Your Honor, I'm not pregnant, but even if I were...
Yes or no will suffice, Mrs. Tarr.
No, Your Honor.
Taking into account your father's testimony regarding the adulterous relationship between Mr. Tarr and Mrs. Chabelle and your humiliation in this incident, as well as Mr. Stark's witness of Mr. Tarr's many verbal and physical abuses against you, I'm going to grant this divorce. Finding Mr. Tarr at fault, the court orders alimony of $200.
Your Honor!
Mr. Tarr!
I think you may have overestimated my
Order, Mr. Tarr!
But Your Honor!
Mr. Tarr! The only overestimation that has been made here today is by you, as it concerns your own impact on your financial success, when it has been made clear to the court that the success of your hotel was due in large part to her efforts. Not to mention the indelicate schemes you implicated her in. It is for this reason that the court orders alimony of $200 per month for the number of years you were married, expiring on October 5th, 1947.
Are you some sort of tragic figure, dancing with death, doomed, as Nietzsche wrote, to live the same life again and again, to relive every pain and joy, and every thought inside, the endless hourglass of existence turning over again and again, and you with it, you speck of dust! Or are you some sort of comedic fool who dares throw away the shackles of death and dance with joy beneath the vast parabola of the night sky?
Hey guys, I can't tell you how much it's meant to me to share the story of Ruby Crow with all of you. If you followed my channel for long, you know that I've spent years unearthing long lost artifacts and showing you guys my finds, but Ruby's letter, it's different. It's more than a relic, it's her story in her own words, describing what she was able to overcome to live a whole and fulfilled life. If I'm being honest, I like to consider myself a bit of a badass. I'm not afraid of rundown buildings, reported trespassing, hauntings, squatters, or, you know, the usual dirt and grime. But Ruby Caroline Crow, she's the real deal. What she went through 100 years ago has relevance today. She thought she was walking into the perfect marriage with the perfect husband, but she ended up being married to a monster. She may have been surrounded by opulence, intellectualism, and fame, but it wasn't enough. And unlike many women in abusive relationships, Ruby found a way out. She had the strength and the support she needed to escape. And through it all, she kept an open and loving heart. I just hope this letter inspires someone out there to do the same. You know what? I'm gonna stop rambling. Let's have Ruby have the final word from her conclusion in the letter to Mr. Tarr.
I often ask Robert if he has written to you, and I inquire of your health. Many people who do not know that I am living alone ask me how you are, and I always say, quite well. I tell you these things so that you may know that I wish for you only good. I dare not hold hatred for anyone. Therefore, I do not hold hatred for you.